It's Lee. I'm going to watch them in. I'm going to tell you to subscribe to the Stranahan Report. CitizenJournalismSchool.com. Subscribe to me on Periscope. What else? Retweet this. That's a good thing to remind you. That's all the stuff I do right at the beginning. But look, I want to get through all that real quickly. This is really a big deal. This is really a big deal right now. No fooling. I need your help. I am up against something frightening, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to overhype it or something like that. I'm not thrilled about things right now. So, my job is in jeopardy right now. Period. That's what's happening. My job is in jeopardy right now, and I got the biggest story in the world right now. I got the biggest story in the world right now. In my opinion, this is the biggest political story in the world. There are other wars and stuff like that going on. Here's what's going on. So, first off, have you seen me in the White House briefing room? And if so, have I acquitted myself properly and made the company look good or look bad? Just ask yourself that. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at that. Now, let me tell you about the story, because that's more important. The reason I was in the White House today is because Donald Trump tweeted yesterday about the DNC servers and how he asked a question. He said, did the FBI even look at the servers? I'm going to go over this again. You need to hear this. You need to hear this. So Donald Trump tweeted that. Now, I can write a story, as I did yesterday, my 3,400 word piece, or I can go into the White House and ask Sean the question, and I'm going to show the question that I was going to ask. And this is what I'm getting in trouble for at work. Right now, this is what I'm getting in trouble for at work. I've been told by Matt Boyle not to go in to the White House again. I've been ordered by Matt Boyle not to go into the White House again. Period. That's what he ordered me to do. You'd have to ask him. He won't give me any possible explanation for it. That's what's happening. Matt Boyle right now has ordered me not to go into the White House again. And this has been going on for several hours now. By the way, did you see me ask the question about NASA? Nobody from the company congratulated me, thought I did a good job, anything like that, even acknowledged it. Right? That's what's going on. Now, let me explain why it's important. Let me show you the question I was going to ask. Okay? And by the way, by me even talking about this right now, probably going to lose my job. But at this point, either Matt can come up and explain it to people. Either Matt can come up and explain it, right? But I've dealt with this for hours and hours and hours. Hours and hours and hours of him threatening me. And I'm the only one in management. I'm not management at Breitbart, but I'm the only one in management. Matt doesn't have kids, right? I have 5 kids to feed. Me losing my job is a big deal to me, right? But I'm not going to let this story get killed. So this is the question I was going to ask. Sean, one day ago, the president asked in a tweet whether the FBI had examined the DNC servers. Well, we know that that, in fact, did not happen. On January 10th, James Comey testified in front of the Senate that despite multiple requests at different levels, the FBI was denied access to the DNC servers. So the question is, given the fact that all the information about these servers came from a company hired by the DNC called CrowdStrike, all of the information, according to James Comey, came from that group. And given the fact that that group is, number one, employed by the DNC, and number two, that they released a report in December that was completely false, trying to tie Russian hacking into the loss of Ukrainian howitzers, an event that the Ukrainian Defense Ministry says never happened. Sean, how can you tell the American people who are looking for clarity on this, how it is justified, if this is a national security issue, that the FBI did not look at those servers? How did that sound? How did that sound? Now, why would I do that? Why would I ask that question? Why would I ask that question? Why would I go into the White House And by the way, I've spent thousands of dollars of my own money to come here, and I had to raise money from you guys, spent thousands of dollars of my own money to come here, to stay here, to dress appropriately, right? And this is what's happening. This is what's happening right now. I was told that I don't need to go to the White House. I said, I do not trust anybody's journalistic judgment more than I do my own. This is a huge story, and the fact is, if it just goes to Breitbart, how many people will see the story? Whereas if I were called on in the White House press briefing room and just asked the question that you heard me ask, how many people would hear it? How many people would hear it? About 4 million. Everyone hears it. And the level of specificity that I put into that question, including, and everything that I said there is completely verifiable. Go back in my Twitter timeline, it's completely verifiable. And this cuts to the absolute heart of the Russian hacking scandal that the media has been going on for weeks and weeks and months and months and months, since June. A story that I first covered at Breitbart. So, I was told by Matt Boyle that I don't need to go to the White House, that I can write about it at Breitbart. I know that, Matt. I know that, Matt. Thanks. I know that. By the way, this isn't personal against Matt. I like Matt. I've dealt with him. But the fact is, if I go to the White House and ask that question, 4 million people will see it. And it's on the record, and it's out there. And people can look it up and go, gee, look at that. Now, here's the other thing, too. I trust my own journalistic judgment more than I trust Matt Boyle's or anybody else's. And again, I just tweeted the Howard Rourke thing. What would Howard do, right? I have gotten stories consistently right. That's what I've done. I've gotten stories consistently right. Read my 3,400-word piece. Read the follow-up in VOA by a different author that confirms the basic facts of what I said in there, because I got it from that author, some of it. I quote him directly in my story. This is the biggest story in the world, and the mainstream media does not want to cover it, won't cover it. The facts are all out there. You cannot deny them, right? You can't deny them, so all they can do is ignore them. Well, I won't be ignored. And so I have an apartment here in D.C., right? I have an apartment here in D.C., I've been away from my wife and my children for 2 months, and my wife and children are 100% supportive of me being here because they know I'm doing big work. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. But I did not come here to be told that I'm not allowed to go to the White House when I've done nothing wrong. Nothing whatsoever wrong. Nothing wrong. So, could be, like I say, I'm probably fired right now. I'm going to tell you, when this gets back to Breitbart, and I'm sure it will, I'm probably fired. But I don't know what else to do. And I've been dealing with this for hours and hours and hours. You want to know why I'm still dressed? Because I've been walking around Washington, D.C., trying to deal with this, trying to figure out what to do, talking to my wife. My wife is just like, you do what you got to do. You should not be answering to other people on this. You're completely right on this, and you're wrong. And they're wrong. Right? And that's what's happening. Now, if Matt wants to come out, which I guarantee you he won't do, because he can't justify the decision. It's inexplicable. It is an inexplicable decision. Right? That's what it is. That's what it is. But this is not about me. This is about the story. This is about the story. So I'm going to go over the story again, because some people might just be joining us. Let's go over this. And I can do it very quickly. The entire contention that the Russian hack came from, the entire contention that the DNC hack came from the Russians comes from a group called CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike has two main executives who are public in this. Sean Henry, former head of cybersecurity for the FBI, let's point that out, former FBI guy. The other one is Dmitry Alperovich, Russian-born, and they were hired by the DNC to come in and look at the hack. When the FBI asked the DNC to look at the servers, they were denied multiple times at different levels. Now, I'm going to point out that James Comey admitted this in a January 10th article. In January 10th testimony in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is in my article. It's linked in my article. None of this is conjecture. So starting last June 14th, the Washington Post came out with an article that the DNC obviously worked with the Post to get out there, talking about how the DNC had been hacked and using CrowdStrike, Sean Henry, and Dmitry Alperovich. And by the way, CrowdStrike is now ducking interviews with Voice of America. Read the article. Go back. It says must read number 2. Read that one. I didn't write it. Read that article. I want you to figure out what's going on here. Why would the DNC not allow the FBI to look at the servers? Furthermore, why would the FBI let them? If this is an issue of grave national security, and the reason I'm making a big deal of this is because our president, Donald Trump, tweeted about this the other night, and I'm answering him. I'm answering his question. Yes, James Comey testified in front of the Senate. Now, by the way, the reason he testified in front of the Senate is that the DNC lied just a couple of days earlier to BuzzFeed and told them that the FBI had never asked them to look at the servers. Comey testified that yes, we did multiple times. But he said it's okay because a well-respected private company decided what information to give us. This is on the video. A well-respected private company, that company is CrowdStrike, who was working for the DNC, Sean Henry, former FBI guy, and Dmitry Alperovich. But just a couple of weeks before that January 10th testimony by Comey, they had issued a report on December 22nd that claimed, now by the way, let me back up for a second, let me do this, that it claimed that Russian hackers using the same virus that got the DNC had destroyed 80% of Ukraine's howitzers, D-30 style howitzers. This has now been denied by both the Ukrainian Defense Ministry and by the group, this just came out today, and the group that CrowdStrike cited. But this is the group who we're getting all the information from, the CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike, who got this report completely wrong. This is the ultimate in fake news. They said howitzers were destroyed by Russians using the same software that was used to hack the DNC. And they used this to prove that it was the Russian government. And this happened 1 week before what? Does anyone remember what happened on December 29th? Anyone remember? Anyone remember? No, not Flynn. That's when the sanctions were issued against Russia and they released the jar. Remember that joint report from the DHS and the FBI who never looked at the servers? I'm going to say that again. The FBI never looked at the servers. Now, Dmitry Alperovich, in interviews, explained the reason they released that report. The reason they released that report was to help tie in the fact that it was the Russians to the DNC attack. He said that in interviews. He said it bolstered their case. Yet it was completely made up, completely false, poorly citationed, incorrectly citation, and then later denied by the Defense Ministry. And by the way, the Defense Ministry of Ukraine denied that on January 6th. And on January 10th, yeah, that's right, the 6th. I'm doing this all from memory. And on January 10th, James Comey called them well-respected. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. Now, I can report this story at Breitbart, and I have 3,400 words. I can do another story, but how do you break through the mainstream narrative? How do you do that? I've been going to these White House press briefings for about 3 weeks, and the way you break through that narrative, Hannity, I'd love to have Hannity on. By the way, I'm supposed to get media requests, so I guess if I'm fired, which I don't know if I'm fired, I'm just assuming I'm fired since I'm saying mean things about Matt, but he can't justify it. And I told him in an email, I said, you need to justify this. You need to justify this. My idea was to go to a press briefing and ask a cogent, specific question about it. I'm going to do the question again. This is the question. I'm going to go back and say this again. I have been told not to go to the White House again, or else. I've been told not to go to the White House again. Now, anybody who's seen me there knows, I'm not going to stop going to the White House. I'm not going to stop going to the White House. I was never given a cogent answer. No, not Matt Drudge, Matt Boyle. Who's my supervisor? Which is another question, but we'll leave that aside for now. I was told, don't go to the White House or else. I don't put up with or else's. I was told also in 2013 not to go to Lebanon. I was also told a couple of years ago not to report on Republican corruption. By the way, one of the guys who was reporting on Steve Stockman, he was just indicted. Now, in the case of Lebanon, I quit. In the other case, I've been fired. In this one, we'll see what's going on here. We'll see what's going on. But I'm not the one who needs to answer for this. Matt Boyle is. And I like Matt. This is not personal. But he needs to explain to people why he's pulling me off, trying to stop me from going to the White House. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. If Breitbart wants to fire me, I'll get someone else to give me a credential. Do you think I'll have a difficult time doing that? Because I don't. I don't think I'll have a difficult time doing that. I could get one tomorrow. I could get one tomorrow. And if I get fired over this, I tried. I've been trying for hours ever since I was told. Let me tell you when I was told this. I was originally told not to go to the White House last week after I asked my NASA question. Now, if you saw my NASA question, how did I do? There is no reason you would watch me asking that question and tell me not to go again. None. None. There's no reason. I looked good. I sounded good. I wasn't an embarrassment to the company. Furthermore, that question was ahead of the news cycle because today the Trump administration announced the NASA budget was going forward, including Mars exploration. So I was ahead of the news cycle. Yeah, I don't put up with blocking the story. And by the way, no stories about that. No congratulations from Matt. Matt didn't even watch the question, he told me. He didn't even watch the question. Nobody from the company said, hey, good job. Thanks for spending all of your money. I got some donations, but I spent about $10,000 of my own money to come out here. Right? To make sure I was dressed properly and everything else. I'm not the problem. I'm not the problem. But what I'm supposed to do is act like I am, which is the lowest level employee at Breitbart. Matt's above me. He was put in that position. He didn't work for the company when Andrew was around. I'll replay what Andrew said about me. But my journalistic resume stands for itself. And on this story right here, this is the biggest story in the world. If you're just joining us, I'm going to go over it again. I've been asked to not go to the White House by my immediate supervisor, Matt Boyle at Breitbart, even though I'm working on what I think is the biggest story in politics right now, which is after months and months and months of spreading this narrative about Russian hacking. My story, 3,400-word story. I got to go. Yep, I'm very